Welcome to the Great Man Podcast. My name is Maxim, and I'm here with my dad, Matthew.
Now, the Great Man Podcast, our goal is to share with you some figures in history and a few people that we've met in person that we consider great men. Now, it's important to understand that, like all people, great men have many flaws. And the great man that we're going to be talking about today is someone that certainly had many flaws as well. In fact, it was actually argued that he was insane by many people, and quite credibly. And yet, the thing that makes a great man, and our opinion, and why they're worthy of study, is that these are people who run into life with a zeal. They try and challenge themselves. They want to see what's possible. They want to test the boundaries. They want to become experts in multiple things, and they become recognized for some specific skill set or some achievement of some kind. But usually these great men have done a lot of different things, and it's incredibly diverse. And this guy we're talking about today is a British guy who's named Churchill, but it's not that Churchill. It's definitely not Winston. This is a guy who's totally different, but also was a Renaissance man in his own right, and had done many, many interesting things, including, I'll just summarize and we'll go through some of the details. This is a guy who was in 3 movies. He was a notable figure in World War II, and in fact, was the last soldier in combat to kill another soldier with a bow and arrow. That was a Nazi. He's done lots of other many accomplishments, as you'll see as we get into this. But this guy's a great man. He was a little insane, but I think there's a lot we can learn from him.
Well, this man was born in Sri Lanka in 1906, and throughout his childhood, he moved around a lot from places like England to even Hong Kong. And he was educated at the Isle of Man King William College, and then right after that he went into a military school, and he left that in 1926 and then was deployed in Burma with the Manchester Regiment.
There wasn't a lot going on then, though, so he spent most of the time seemingly riding his motorcycle around Burma.
Yeah, but he left the army in 1936, where he worked as a newspaper editor in Kenya and as a male model, which is not what you would expect with this guy, but it's definitely funny.
Yeah, well, I think the diversity of his different things is what really is interesting, and it's not clear exactly why he left the military during that period, but my guess is it was just not exciting enough for him. Mm-hmm. So he goes to Nairobi and becomes a newspaper editor and a male model on the side.
And he also starred in the movie somewhat, The Thief of Baghdad and The Yank at Oxford. And the reason why he was in those movies was for his expertise in archery. And he even represented Britain in the World Archery Championships in 1939.
Yeah, he kind of learned this on the side along with his bagpipe playing, right?
Well, he placed second in a bagpipe competition, but...
Well, and actually, if I recall, it was very controversial that he placed second in it because it's normally a competition that had been historically dominated by Scots, and the fact that this British guy had placed second was unnerving to them, to say the least. I'm sure he was disappointed in himself that he didn't get number 1. Yeah,
with this guy for sure. But on September 3rd, 1939, World War II started, and this was a great thing for this guy. He ended up loving this war, and he still wanted it to go on for 10 more years after it ended.
He was very disappointed in the American participation in the war because without the damn Yanks, it could have continued for another decade, he thought.
So he really liked war, but he once again joined the Manchester Regiment and was deployed to France. He deployed with a long sword, not a claymore, but a certain variation of it that was one-handed, and only one edge of it was actually sharp.
I think it's a clay beg sword.
That's what it's called.
Yeah.
And he was also bringing his bagpipes, of course, and a longbow. And he said that any officer who goes into action without his sword is improperly dressed. So he just wanted to continue the tradition that officers had throughout the centuries before of carrying that sword.
Yeah, although it seems totally impractical, in an era where you've got
machine guns,
Panzer tanks, and yet it worked for him somehow.
The very first thing that he's notable for is when he ambushed a German patrol of, I think it was 5 men, or at least he ran into a group of 5 men, in which he noticed them first and shot one of them in the neck with a barbed arrow. So, I mean, imagine being that guy, carrying around a machine gun, and then some crazy British guy shoots you in the neck with a bow and arrow.
Yeah, it's just unexpected, to say the least.
Yeah. During the Battle of Dunkirk, he was shot in the neck by a machine gun, but he did save a wounded British officer, in which he got the first military cross for bravery, which was one of 2, but he got many awards after that. And then after Dunkirk, he became second in command of 3 commandos to raid a German garrison in Norway, what was
the name of it?
Operation Archery.
Yeah, guess who named it?
Of course. And then when he stormed the beaches for that mission, Operation Archery, he played March of the Cameron Men on his bagpipe. And then he threw a grenade. And then he charged at the enemy with his sword. And long story short, they ended up capturing all the Germans. And when the German machine gunners were asked why they didn't shoot him, they said it was in pity because they thought he was unwell.
Yeah, mentally unwell.
Mentally unwell.
And I think they have a point. I mean, the sight of this guy, on the beach, there's only a couple of them anyway. So it's him in his kilt with his bagpipes, screaming at him. And they're like, what is going on here? Yeah. We have not trained for this. So, yeah, it was shocking.
Then he was deployed to Italy in Salerno and Catania. Once again, charged the enemy with his sword, spread out men at night, and at once they would all shoot at these German bunkers or German positions while screaming "Commando."
Yeah, I think the idea was basically to make the enemy think that there were a lot more of them than there really were, and it really kind of discombobulated the enemy again, surprise. And he is known in that campaign for, with the help of a corporal, capturing 42 German troops and a mortar crew with just the use of his Kleebeg sword. Yeah. So they went from position to position. You would hold the Kleebeg at the guy's neck, and then kind of take him to the next position, point his Kleebeg at the other guy's face, and he said, if you talk to the Germans properly, they know that they should listen to you. So he had this kind of air about him, apparently, that made people just go, oh, well, I guess he's in charge now.
Yeah.
So
while doing that, he made the Germans surrender. This was a different time, but it worked most of the time. I think he only had 50 men for most of them. Against that one specifically was like 137 Germans. Made them all surrender just by thinking that there were a lot more of them.
Right. Yeah. I mean, one of the things that got him into, so he was, because of his early showing in the war, the way he used these guerrilla or commando tactics is what got him invited to go to the commando training, for this special group within the British military. And then, he served under those sort of commando type units basically for the rest of his career. In 1944, he was sent to assist Tito's forces in Yugoslavia. There, he led a full frontal assault on a well-defended tower on the island of Brock. So, leading the charge, strafing fire and mortars, he was one of only 7 men to reach the target area. And after firing off every last bullet he had, he grabbed his bagpipes and he started playing "Will Ye No Come Back Again" on his pipes until the advancing Germans finally knocked him unconscious with a grenade blast.
Yeah, exactly.
And then he became a prisoner of war.
Yep, and then he became a prisoner of war and he was taken to a concentration camp. Was that the first or second time?
The first time he was taken to it was a concentration camp, and he escaped, though. Mm-hmm. He shimmied under a wire fence and attempted to walk about 125 miles through Nazi territory to the Baltic Sea, but he was recaptured, and he was transferred to a different camp, and this time the camp was in Italy, but as you might expect, once again, he escaped. And he snuck away during a power outage and walked about 100 miles using a stolen rusted can to cook what he considered liberated vegetables looted from Nazi-held fields until he found an American regiment and convinced them that he was a British officer.
Well, and that American regiment, he told, was heading the wrong way.
Oh, really?
Because they were trying to leave, but they were heading towards all of the fighting.
Oh.
So he said, well, I'm leaving, and I don't want to come back for a third time. So,
I didn't get that.
yeah. So, but he...
You probably didn't even have his clay bag anymore.
No, he lost it.
So exactly, why would he want to go back in there?
Yeah.
Like, what's he going to do?
Yeah. So,
Well,
the Americans just kept going in the wrong direction, he said.
yeah,
I'm
and
done.
you know, and one of the things actually we didn't mention the detail about this, about that he, you know, how he actually killed the last soldier in combat with a bow and arrow. We mentioned how he you know, got the guy in the neck, but didn't kill him. You know, what happened apparently with this is that he made the last ever recorded bow and arrow kill in World War II when he shot a German officer in 1940 while holding the village of Le Pétain in France. And so he basically, the Germans were advancing on the position. He told his men, he said, I'll take the first shot. I'll kill the first German with my bow. And then after that, so he shot the guy in the chest, guy fell over dead. And then, of course, then they fought off the German advance with normal weapons appropriate for World War II.
So it wasn't the first time. He did not kill the first
Right.
guy.
Just a wound.
Okay.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, it was a chest shot. Like he got him square in the chest. It was a confirmed kill. Yeah.
Yeah.
So after the war, he didn't want it to end.
Yeah. He wanted to continue fighting because this guy's a little insane.
Yeah, at least.
So he decides to go to Burma to fight in the Pacific Theater. But right as he gets there, like basically right when he lands, 2 nukes go off. The war's done. Japan surrenders, and so that's when he has the quote, "We could have kept this war going on for 10 more years if it wasn't for these damned Yanks."
Yeah, a lifelong grudge probably ensued after that.
Yeah.
But, you know, the thing is, his life didn't end, obviously, at that point. In fact, you know, post-World War, or post-war, he qualified as a parachutist because, of course, he's like, needs some action in his life.
Yeah.
And he transferred to the Seaforth Highlander Regiment, and he got deployed as a second in command of the 1st Battalion of the Highland Light Infantry in Palestine in 1948. And you know, along with 12 of his soldiers, attempted to rescue this convoy of fleeing Jews that were being attacked by some Arabs. Mm-hmm. Yeah, you told me something about this that I didn't.
Well,
know.
that's where he was wearing a kilt, and the people there said he had a smile on his face when he walked up to the bus to end up defending him. So, I mean, this guy's in Palestine wearing a kilt, and then just sees this random group of people being attacked and starts
at least trying to intervene to save them. And I think one of the things that really is a great, man, you see this over and over again, is this zest, this zeal for life, like for like trying to do something, you know, and like just like the war ends, so he becomes a parachutist because he needs some action, you know. In this slow period in his life earlier, you know, he decides to, you know, pick up the bagpipes and learn archery, you know, and then goes to the World Championships. I mean, you just see this thing over and over again with some of these great men that we'll talk about in later episodes. But he is well known later in his deployment in Palestine for coordinating the evacuation of 700 Jewish doctors and students and patients from the Hebrew University campus hospital in Jerusalem, you know, as it was coming under attack. So he's certainly was I think he received some other accommodation for that. I don't recall. But.
Well, with his defense of the medical bus, one thing I forgot about was that they ended up naming that street after him.
No, really?
Yeah.
Oh.
So now it's like Churchill Avenue or Churchill Street.
And everyone probably thinks it's Winston. But actually, which Churchill are we talking about?
Just to clarify, we're talking about Mad Jack Churchill, who earned his name Mad or Fighting Jack, something like that, in World War II for his insane actions against the Germans.
Right, and he was and I believe he finished his career as a lieutenant colonel, but we aren't quite done with exactly the end of his career. There were a couple other things he did. So after you know, the Palestine thing, there wasn't a lot of action out there. So he gets deployed to Australia, where he is basically an instructor in the land warfare, you know, teaching land warfare. Mm-hmm. And but he spent a lot of his time, apparently, like you would, fostering his new love of surfing.
Yeah. And then he designed his own surfboard.
Right. Yes, he designed his own surfboard because, of course, it probably wasn't good enough, and he could probably do it better. I mean, where would he? There probably was no sheath for his clay bed on the surfboard. I don't know. So after that, he finally went back to England. And where he's the only surfing he could really do was on the river there, apparently. But and he had finished out his career working a desk job for the military before finally retiring in 1959. Now, it is important to mention that he actually had one other role in the third movie, the most popular movie, in 1952 called Ivanhoe. And a lot of people have probably heard of that movie. These are bit parts that he has in these movies, but still, how many people do you know who have bit parts in 3 movies? How many people do you know who have killed somebody with a bow and arrow in war, that have learned the bagpipes and surfing and have really strived like this? And these are the things that make him a great man in our mind.
Mm-hmm. For the skills he has and for the insane stuff he did, but I think definitely the skills is a big part.
Well, I mean, and it's hard to know where the insanity begins, or where the insanity ends, rather, and where the zest for living begins. Mm-hmm. Because it's he wants adventure. He'd already, obviously, he's an international man who's grown up all around the world in the British, the fading British Empire, and is well-educated, well-trained, but is constantly trying to acquire new skills. And I just think that it's that zest for, wouldn't it be cool if,
Yeah, if I did this.
Yeah, and then he had this kind of extra, honestly, Churchill-like attitude that he was meant for something important. That's, like Winston had. So, in any case, he apparently mellowed out enough, after his retirement, that he was content to spend basically the last 37 more years of his life sailing coal-fired ships along the Thames with his wife, piloting radio-controlled model warships, and raising a family. So it's hard to imagine he actually just faded away without killing anyone else or, learning any new crazy skills. But that's really all we have on his story after that point.
And then he died at the age of 89, right?
I believe so. But he was probably pissed off, though, when he realized he was going to die.
Probably.
Yeah, he's like, if I only had my sword by me, I could fight death.
He did end up getting that back.
He did?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, wow. I didn't know that.
Yeah, when he went back to England.
Okay.
Or maybe it was a new one. Most likely it was.
But he wasn't going to walk around, with improper uniform as an officer.
No.
Yeah.
He couldn't do that.
So, in our mind, Mad Jack was definitely a great man. Was he a good man? I wouldn't necessarily say good man. Who knows, right? Obviously, killed a lot of people. It was a war. We could make lots of arguments about it. But, he did raise a family, which certainly is a sign of a good man. But his extraordinary zest for life, his striving to achieve skills, his courage, his insanity, really, and his willingness to really put himself out there and try and alter the way the world was functioning is pretty impressive. So, in any case, hope you enjoyed learning about Mad Jack. Definitely, apparently there was a biography written about him and just published it, I believe, in 2017. So, which we haven't read, but it's on my list.
We'll put those in the description, as well as the 2 bagpipe songs he played that during the war in the description as well, in case you want to listen to it. I listened to one of them. I thought it was pretty good, but it's better if you imagine him playing it while the doors drop and he just starts running out. But anyway, hope you guys enjoyed it. Hope you learned something from this. And we're going to be doing tons of different videos like this from people in the past, people living now, but great men in general that we have a lot to learn from. Yeah.
And the important reason for all this is because times like now require men to step up in a different way, to test yourselves, to acquire skills. Now, don't go insane like Mad Jack, but I think you should see what's possible. You should, instead of spending your time, twiddling your thumbs or on your keyboard, on your phone or whatever, instead of something like that, maybe learn the bagpipes or some bow and arrow or something or parachutes or something. But there's so much more possible. These people, we hope, can inspire you to try harder, because you could do better. We all could do better.
But thank you guys, and we'll see you guys next time.